Hey guys, today we are going to talk about how to make your own mash kettle. Now mash kettles can be made very easily. All you need is a large pot. I will go for a 30-liter pot. Rule of thumb is use a pot which is at least 1.5 size of the pot that you are trying to make. Now in this pot, you'll find these large circular bags. You can insert those bags. In this pot, now you can put in all your grains. This bag can easily hold about 6 kgs of grains. Add the water and everything, and then with the thermometer you can take the reading of how much temperature you want, and you can go for various mashing cycles. After your mashing cycles are over, you can just pull the 4 ends together and raise it. As you raise it, the water will start dripping down, and your automatically your grain and your wort are separate. You can allow to hang this at an elevation just above the pot so that the water keeps on dripping. If you add some more hot water to it, it will lead to sparging, and all the sticky sweet wort which is sticking to your grains, that will get drained out. So that way your mashing efficiency will improve. At multiple stages, people will use refractometers, they will use hydrometers to compute the mashing efficiencies. Also, you can use a few drops of iodine. Iodine you can get in any medical store. That will find out whether there is any more starch left. Once you have concluded that your entire mashing is done and your grains are also removed, then is the time to add the hops. Now for hops, we have various options. If you don't like bitter beers, you want a very small batch, you can use something called a hop bomb. It's a very simple, small, nifty tool. You can keep about 30 grams of hops inside this. Close this and put it inside your kettle. At this end, you can attach a weight so that it doesn't go inside. You can regulate how much quantity is there. During mashing, if you want to stir a little bit, you can use a mash paddle. The mash paddle has holes here. The reason for these holes is, and the triangular form is, so that it does not give a lot of resistance when you are stirring the grains. Now, if you want to add a little bit more hops than this, then we are going to use something called a hop tube. Now, a hop tube can hold about 300 grams of hops inside. So, it's pretty good. This is the hop tube. So you put in your hops. This is a perforated, so it makes it easy. And then you can insert this here. Now if you want to have a really strong IPA, then I recommend that you use something called a spider. The spider, this vessel is actually too small for a spider. You can add in a lot of hops here and you can put it here. Now the reason why we are inserting all the hops through a perforated mesh is you don't want the grids of the hops to go and start clogging your systems. You want your beer to be very nice, neat, clean and filtered, and there are as little impurities in your fermenter as possible. If your fermenter is without the hops, then it is possible that you can use a conical fermenter and wash your yeast, recycle it for your next batch as well. Now, once your aromatic hops, your bitter hops, everything has been added, they have been boiled, they have been isomerized, then it's the time to chill it. Now, to chill it, we use something called a wort chiller. This is a stainless steel wort chiller. You can also get a much cheaper copper wort chiller. I prefer stainless steel because it has a much longer life and it's very much durable. The copper, specifically the food grade copper, not the AC ducting copper. The food grade copper is very soft, it tends to block. The AC ducting copper has lead inside, which makes it not food grade. It is meant primarily to carry refrigerants, not the food grade particles, hence try to avoid it. You can attach any hose to it, and you can attach this hose to your kitchen tap or inside your refrigerator, wherein you can have a source of cold water. The cold water will circulate through these stainless steel pipes, and as they circulate through the stainless steel pipes, they will chill your wort. If you stir a little bit while you are chilling, that whirlpool will cause your wort to chill much faster. Typically, it takes about 15 minutes for about 20 to 30 liters of water to come back to the room temperature, at which temperature you can add your yeast. Now comes another question. There are two ends to a wort chiller, one from the bottom, one from the top. Which one should I use? Now you would want a uniform gradient, so which means that typically if you are stirring, it does not matter. You can use any end. Your wort, because of the stir, the temperature will be uniform. The flow direction does not matter. However, if you are not stirring and you're allowing it to cool on its own, then what I prefer is that I would insert the cold water from the bottom. The reason is the cold liquid tends to settle towards the bottom. If I'm introducing cold water here, so that time the temperature difference between your outside wort and the water at this point is going to be substantial, so it will still allow it to cool. And as it rises up, it will the water inside the wort chiller tends to increase in temperature, but it's still lower than the wort chiller, and so the cooling effect still continues. If I cool it from the top, which some people recommend, then you would find that there is going to be a steep temperature difference. So your wort is going to be at a much higher temperature, while the water that you have been circulating is at a much lower temperature. This temperature gradient is very high at the top, while by the time the water comes all the way to the bottom, it is already at the same temperature level as your wort, so it will not be cooling down the wort at the bottom. However, if you are stirring, again, you don't have to worry about which connection to use. Both connections are of the same size. Now, what to do with the spent water? Well, if you have access to a refrigerator or an ice box, you can send the spent hot water from the heat exchanger or the wort chiller back to that to get it cooled. If you don't have it, then my recommendation is that use this in your garden to water your plants. Don't allow this water is very precious, don't allow the water to go down the drain and waste it. Now your wort is cold. What do you need to do next? Well, now it's time to transfer the wort from your kettle to your fermenter. Now there are two ways to do that. One is a very traditional method, simple traditional method, in which you are going to use a siphon. With the siphon, you are going to transfer it out. The second method, which a lot of people recommend, would be something called lautering. For lautering, you need a bazooka and you need a stainless steel wall lock valve. So wall lock valve essentially means that it has a valve which locks it. So when this is aligned with the flow, that means the flow is open. When it is cross, it's cross, which means the flow is closed. It's a very simple mechanism, easy to remember. You can use the slug buster. This goes out, this bazooka goes inside, and when you attach the two together, this acts as a filtering mechanism. So the grains get separated from the wort, and you can get the pure filtered wort. So for filtration, you have two options. You can use a bag, which is brew in a bag technique, or you can create a grain bed. Just remember that there should be some. You cannot keep grains over the direct fire. If you're keeping the grains over direct fire, they will get caramelized. So a double bottom, a double false bottom is what is required, and with the false bottom, you can convert an ordinary bhagona into a mashing kettle. Thank you.